Continuing the journey of trying to get all the awesome 40k releases painted for you guys, we are going to be tackling Commissar Yarrick in today's video. I'm very excited to finally get stuck into him and get him all built and painted and show you how easy it actually is to do. Before I get into the video, as usual, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone out there that continues to support the channels in all the myriad of ways it is possible to do so. Liking, commenting, and subscribing are all awesome. Making sure you're doing that obviously helps people see the videos and helps the channel grow. So thank you so much. And anyone out there goes the extra mile support over on Patreon. You guys keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for doing that. Obviously, there's a whole host of reasons to be involved with Patreon. There is obviously private Discord server where we host community showcases and painting competitions, and you can talk to me on a daily basis about your hobby. We do extra videos, we do access to a podcast, and we do monthly giveaways. This month, we are giving away this Mechanicum Army box set. So if you want to get a chance of winning this, all you need to do is be signed up to Patreon at any tier, and I will ship that anywhere in the world at my expense. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in and get Yarrick painted up. Okay, so this is the new Commissar Yarrick model, the third iteration of this model, and it's quite the globe. It looks absolutely stunning. He's on a 32mm base. Got all of his trait equipment, his power claw taken from an orc knob. He's got the old bale eye, which is the kind of laser digital weapon built into his eye. He's got a storm bolter. He's got power sword. He's got another pistol. He's armed to the teeth. Now, obviously, this model represents a slightly older Commissar Yarrick. Not that Yarrick wasn't older previously. So there is lots of little cool touches that you can see on the model, which is just to like kind of indicate how he's still on his feet. So unlike his old model, which he just had a claw and he was a beast, this one has got servo arms built into it, going to a power pack on his back, which is obviously helping him to support, move, and power the claw. And then he also has mechanical braces on his knees, to obviously to help him support the weight. And, you know, he's a frail old man, kind of like, I wouldn't say frail. Let's take the word frail out. He's an older man, but he's still very much kind of the hero of the Imperium. So it's very cool to see him back. Originally, when I was making this video, I was tempted to touch on the drama around his rules and stuff like that. But I decided to just ignore all that and crap. He got some rules. Maybe they're a little bit too overpowered. They got changed a little bit. He sits at 150 points. I'll pay 150 points to put a model this cool on the table. And hopefully he does well. If not, who cares? The model was sprayed black and then sprayed grey sear, which is usually how I go about getting models ready to start applying some contrast. After that, I moved on to black Templar, and obviously I went to all the black details on the miniature, including his gigantic storm coat. The brim of his hat, the top of his hat is also black. And then there's a few other details, the casing on his storm boulder and stuff. You need to go around and make sure you get them. Then we move on to Flesh Tears Red, a nice deep dark red, and started blocking in all of those red details. So obviously he's got his commissarial sash, bright red. He's got the power claw casing is red. There's the casing on the backpack is also red. The inner part of his collar is red. The inner part of the whole jacket is red. The cuffs of his jacket are red. So there's quite a lot of red there. So make sure you do go around the whole model and try and find them. He's got obviously a beautiful piece of chest armor on. And the majority of it is silver and gold, but the big huge aquila across the front is done in like a marbly white color. So I decided to base coat that in with Agros Dunes, which I think is a nice way to start that off. And then we can use some bone colors later on to bring that up. Next, we shall be working on his skin. So we're putting on the base coat for that, which is just going to be some standard Guilliman flesh. And obviously there's not very much of his skin showing, so it's just his face and his left hand. That's all you need to worry about with the Guilliman flesh contrast. And then there is some brown leather showing, so some Gore-Grunta fur was used. The sheath for his power saber, the sheath for his pistol, the leather strap holding his storm bolter. All those bits are going to be done in brown. Just make sure you go and find all those little details. There's like a pouch behind his pistol and stuff, and a little bit of like kind of webbing and stuff that come down over his hip. So just make sure you get all those bits when you're doing the brown. After that, it's time to start tackling the metallics. So we go to our trusty lead belcher and we start blocking in all of those colors. So obviously the rest of his chest piece, minus the kind of big metal piece on the very top underneath his chin, is done in silver. Obviously the rest of the storm bolter is done in silver, and all the claws and bolts for the power claw are done in silver. And then there's a few other details like that bionic arm and stuff. So once again, go around the whole model, make sure you don't miss any bits and pieces, and block them all in with that silver color. And then we move over to Retributor Armor Gold for all of the rest of the details on the miniature pretty much. So I know the pro cage or whatever they're called on his shoulder are probably meant to be more of a tan color, you know, like gold threaded. So I don't know whether they're supposed to look like pure gold, but I like them in pure gold. So I blocked him in gold. I gave his medal underneath his chin in gold. I know it's an actual like Imperial military medal. I'm sure it's in a book I have somewhere. The Infantryman's Handbook or something has what that actually is. I can't remember. And then just like the hilt of his sword and some detail on his Stormbolt as well to do in the gold. I took a little bit of textured paste out and I just filled in between the rest of the rubble and tidied up the base a little bit. And with all of the base coats on and the kind of base ready to go, it's time to throw a Nuln Oil across the entire miniature, head to toe, not the base. A nice dark Nuln Oil to bring it all down. He's supposed to be kind of a dark, brooding, sinister character. Commissars are supposed to be clad in, you know, their big black trench coats or storm coats as they're called. So I think a Nuln Oil is in order, especially for the amount of metallics and stuff he has. Right, when that is fully dry, I guess it's time to start layering. So I'm going to start with the Corvus Black, which I'm going to use to layer all of the black areas, including, of course, his big storm coat and the casing on his Storm Bolter. I'm not going to go crazy with the black. I like black being subtle and dark, a background color. So I'm not going to go into like a light gray and try and highlight the edges or anything like that. I'm going to leave it just be like the canvas for kind of the rest of the parts of the model to kind of shine off of. With that done, we're going to go into the reds. So for this, we're going to go for Mephiston, Evil Sun Scarlet, and Wild Rider Red. These are my favorite three kind of triad reds. And I'm going to take my time because we're going on some of the more crucial details on the model. Some of the bits that when people look down on the table and see your Yarrick, they're going to notice his power claw and stuff like that. So spending a little bit extra time on these details will make a huge difference to the final look of the model. So the first thing we're doing is that layering of the Mephiston Red, which is basically like kind of a scratchy all over coat. We're just leaving the dark, washed down, flesh tears red contrast in all the deep recesses. And then the Mephiston is going pretty much everywhere else. And then we jump up to the Wild Rider Red, the Evil Sun Scarlet. We're basically doing the same thing again. We're just coming in a little bit further, going a little bit more scratchy, leaving a little bit more of the Mephiston showing through. And then obviously coming out from those edges a little bit more as well, just to overemphasize that color. And you can see how the red really starts to pop. And while I'm doing this, like I said, I'm doing the power claw, I'm doing his sash, I'm doing like the rest of his hat, the backpack, the inner part of his cape, or his jacket, sorry, is all done in a rich red lining. And I'm following those colors the whole way around. It's going to act like a really nice framework for some of the other details. They used to do that whole, you know, triangle of color. There should be like a triangle of color across a miniature. And the red is definitely selling that for me with this. And with the last color, that Wild Rider, we're going in at the very edges. I'm just going for a little bit of an edge highlight, and we'll go a little bit scratchier across that big flat panel on the claw there. Just adding a tiny little touch of an extra highlight there, but being very careful with the color around the hat area and stuff like that. And if you do take your time and you really get this right, it's going to pop really well and look really nice. And you can see here the final look on the red. And I say final look, but I do actually go in on the power claw with just one more color later on, just to make it pop a tiny bit more. But I'll talk about that when I get to it. For now, we're going to grab our Morghast bone and then our Wraith bone. Those are going to be the mid-tone and the highlight. For that nice piece of chest armor that he has, which is done in like a marbly bone color. So I'm going to use this color for this. And then in the center of his hat is a skull. That is also done in those kind of same bone colors. So they share those tones. As you can see, I've moved on to quite a fine brush for this. These details are quite small on this guy. That's Commissar Yarrick. He deserves the time and attention, so I don't mind switching to a smaller brush, really taking my time with it. I'm making sure he gets the paint job that he deserves, to kind of my highest ability anyway. We're going to go back to Leadbelcher now, and this is to highlight some of those metallic bits back up again. We are not going for a full solid coat. Once again, it's those scratchy highlights. Moving quickly and just highlighting the kind of the bits that are going to get more light, so kind of higher areas, or flatter areas are going to get a little bit of the silver. Anywhere that's like tucked away under arms or in the bottom of the bolter or underneath the claw or anything like those, you can just leave them the washed silver that they are. And that will actually look better than if you went in and tried to highlight them again. And with the base, it's a simple dry brush of Ryza Rust over all the brown. And obviously I painted all the stonework in with kind of gray originally before I even put the texture paste on. So when I'm dry brushing on this Ryza Rust color, I'm making sure to hit all the stonework and the bottom of his boots and all that kind of stuff. So it blends in really nicely. After that's dry, we're just going to go in with a very light dry brush of a bone color. I'm using Ushapti bone. Just hitting those edges again. And this is just how I do all of my basing for every single guard or regiment that I have. So they all blend in together. So if I want to play a really large game and use multiple regiments, they'll all match in at least base-wise. This is that time I went in and just touched up the red a little bit more. So I went back in with this Tau Light Ochre color and just hit the very sharp edges and corners. Very final touch of this. And all I did this on was, like I said, the power cloth casing. It goes onto his elbow as well as a little bit of red armor. And then the backpack. I didn't do it on the coat or anything like that. Hadean flesh tone in the new paint pot was used as the first highlight for the skin. Now, obviously, he's got a very gaunt face, so it actually makes it a lot easier to highlight. Like when you go from the chin up along the jaw, it's quite a thin line. And then when it goes up into the cheek is obviously pushed in. So you don't highlight the cheek. You just go up onto the kind of cheekbone, going from like the orbital bone around your eye socket, and then pull that up towards the top of the ear. And that'll be an easier highlight to do. And we'll give you that impression of the old school face. A bit of Berserker Bloodshade thinned down with a touch of water was used to add just a tiny bit more warmth back into the face. You can, of course, not do this if you want it to be even more drawn out and old looking, but I'm sure he's well fed and he's had a few glasses of port, so he's allowed to have a little bit of colour in his face. And then went in with Kislev Fesh for the very last highlight on the skin, like the tiniest little brush strokes, just making sure those details pop. And with that, we have our finished Commissar Yarrick ready to be deployed alongside my Cadian forces on the tabletop for 11th edition. Really pleased with the final result. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. Also, do let me know what you think about his rules. Do you think he's takeable? What do you think his strengths are, his weaknesses? Not very good at the rules, so your help with that would also be really useful. Don't forget to check out the Patreon if you want to be in with a chance of winning that awesome Mechanicum box set. There's a whole host of other reasons to be involved as well. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the movie. I'll see you in the next one. I said movie, didn't I? Why did I say movie? End of the video.